All right, in this video today, I'm going to show you very basics of glazing. There's a lot of different ways to apply glaze to your projects. I'm going to just show you a little bit of dipping and pouring glazes. There are ways to layer glazes, to add effects, to use different materials, to put glazes right next to each other. That'll be a later video. For this video, very basics, okay? I'm going to be glazing a small bowl. I'm going to be glazing a coffee cup, and I'm going to be glazing a little bit larger bowl. Okay, when we're glazing, the first thing I'm going to show you about glazing is the very most basic way, which would be to glaze something all one color. So if I had this little bowl here, and I want to glaze it all one color, what I'm going to do is use what are called glaze tongs. Now glaze tongs grab the piece like this, and we dip the piece into a bucket of glaze, and we pull that piece out, and then it will be completely covered in glaze. Very simple. It's a way you can cover a piece with one entire coat of glaze. So I'm going to show you that now. We use a drill with a mixing arm on it to mix the glazes, and we always want to make sure that this is clean before we put it into a bucket of glaze. One of the things you're going to hear me talk about in class a lot is glaze contamination. If you spill one glaze into another glaze, you essentially ruin the glaze because you contaminate the color. So think if there's a white bucket of paint and you spill black paint in the white paint. Now it's gray. With glazes, it's kind of the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one of these buckets out around the table. And the color of this glaze is called antique white. The lids go into the side when you're not using them. And I'm going to mix the glaze up. When I mix the glaze, I put the drill into the glaze bucket all the way down, and then I mix it with the drill. You want to mix for about 30 or 40 seconds, especially if you're the first person who's mixed it in a while. Always mix the glazes to double check to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. If the glazes aren't mixed, sometimes the materials separate and the glaze won't be the color that you expect it to be because you didn't mix it well. Now, you'll notice I put it into this bucket of water, the drill into the bucket of water. That's so the glaze doesn't get stuck to the mixer. Always make sure you return the drill back to the bucket of water. Okay, so I've got my project. I've already blown the dust off of this with the air compressor. There are, on the wall right next to me, instructions for glazing, before you glaze and how to glaze and different ways of glazing. Make sure you review those instructions before you start. They're on the wall in the glaze room right next to where I'm at. So I've grabbed the piece with my tongs. You'll see that it's grabbing on the inside and the outside with these metal little kind of plier arms. I'm holding it. If I squeeze too hard, I could break my piece. Don't squeeze too hard. My goal is to dip my project into the glaze, hold it for a second, and then turn it over and shake it out. So I'm going to dip it in, turn it over, and shake the glaze out. I don't want to touch this right away because it's still wet and shiny. I can either set it down on the table and remove the tongs. Try not to drag the tongs. You'll notice when I open the tongs, I flicked it open with my fingers and pulled it away. Then when I have my glaze tongs, I want to rinse these in the bucket of water as well. So I rinsed my glaze tongs as well. Now that my project has dried a little bit, I can pick it up and touch it, and you can see the project is glazed with one solid color inside and out. Okay, so now I'm going to return the lid back onto the bucket, and I'm going to return the bucket inside. Now, I'm going to glaze this coffee cup next. And because when I glaze this coffee cup, I want the inside to be what's called a food-safe glaze. I want to make sure the glaze that goes on the inside is something that's going to be safe for food to be on. All the glazes are essentially safe to put food on or in. It's just that your pot will be more durable, your cup will be more durable, and will be easier to wash and less likely to grow mold if you leave food in it for a while. If you use a liner glaze. So some of our glazes are liner glazes and some are not. The safest one to always use is either the clear glaze or the white. I'm going to use the white glaze. So here in this bucket I have the white glaze. I'm going to clean my mixer, what you'll notice sometimes on the mixer is that there will be a little residual glaze on the mixing arm. We need to clean that off first. So if that happens, you can spin it in the water, which will usually clean most of it off. Take your hand and clean it off, or if you have a sponge, you can wipe this off with a sponge, okay? We don't want to contaminate the glazes. These buckets of glazes are anywhere between $75 to $150 a piece. And you can easily ruin them and waste a lot of money by just contaminating the glazes. If I notice a glaze gets contaminated, you guys will only get to use that. I'll make myself up a bucket of glaze and I'll use that for myself. But I use these too, so I will be upset if you contaminate them. When pouring glaze, I'm going to use this blue pitcher. The blue pitcher needs to be completely clean with no glaze on it. I'm going to scoop out an amount of glaze. I'm going to pour it on the inside of my project, and then I'm going to slowly rotate the project and dump the glaze out so that the inside is glazed white. I'm filling it about half full, and then I'm going to slowly pour this glaze out as I turn it. And now the inside of my cup is going to be white. If any drips run down that you don't like, that's where you can take a sponge and wipe those dips off. Okay. And then I'm going to make the outside this green color. Now I can tell this glaze hasn't been mixed in a while. I'm going to mix it a little bit longer. Now, I have a foot on my project, so I'm going to grab it by the foot of the project, and I'm going to dip the glaze all the way in. Okay? When I dip it in, I'm going to hold it for about a second, and then I'm going to pull it out and shake it a little bit. You'll notice that I have glaze on my fingers. I dipped the project all the way down because I wanted to get the inside of my foot glazed. And if you could see on the inside, I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, the inside is still white and the outside is this light green color that will become what's called weathered bronze, or it's kind of like a matte finished green. Okay, it looks really good with the texture that I have on this cup. So now that my cup has dried, I can remove my fingers, and I have 3 little marks where my fingers were. I could touch a little bit of glaze on those spots, but I will be cleaning off the foot, dry footing this pot, so I don't need to do that quite yet. I'm going to glaze a bowl the same way again. Bowls are pretty much the same way. I'm going to glaze this white on the inside, and I'm going to do a decoration on the outside. So again, I'll go to my white bucket where I have some glaze in a pitcher. I did just mix this glaze, so I don't need to mix it again. I'm pouring some glaze on the inside, and then I'm slowly pouring it out. Now, sometimes when you're glazing bowls, what will happen, especially on bowls, is you might spill on the outside. You can leave that on the outside and put another glaze over it, and you'll be able to see it, or you can take a sponge and wipe the outside. We don't want to use too much water when we do this, because it will affect how much glaze can be absorbed. So we want to use as little water as possible, and I'm just going to wipe that excess glaze off that I don't want on the piece. Just double checking, making sure I get it all. Okay, now the inside's white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this into that green glaze again. And you can see I dipped it all the way in. The inside is still white. A little bit of the green got on the rim of the lip. In a later video, I'll show you how you can keep it perfect. But when you do put your project in the glaze, if you want to keep the inside one color, you want to make sure if this was the bucket that you go straight in. Okay, that's going to prevent the glaze from coloring the inside. If you go in crooked like this, the glaze will coat the inside as well. So with my coffee cup, I went straight down, and what happens is you trap air on the inside, and that air protects, it creates a little bit of pressure on the inside, and it protects the inside from being glazed. So now that I have this glazed on the outside, I can do a little bit of decorating if I want. A very basic way to decorate, if you'd like, is you can pour glaze over the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour a few little stripes of white over my green. Now, I wasn't trying to make the stripes symmetrical. I just wanted to add a little bit of variation to my pot. So you can see in this area, it's going to be the green and the white, the green and the white, the green and the white. If you wanted to be more precise, we have other tools that we'll do that with later, but you can layer the glazes. The last step of this process is to wipe the glaze off of the foot. This process is called dry footing. I'm going to grab my piece. I never take the piece and set it on the table and wipe the glaze off. That is incorrect. You will ruin the glaze surface of your project and have to glaze it all over again. Whenever you wipe the glaze of your project, you always hold it in your hand when you're wiping it. Never set your project down on the table. Inevitably, some of you will do this and you will ruin the glaze on the rim of your pot. Because if you set it down and you wipe it, the pot will turn and the table will start chipping the glaze off of the rim. So I take my pot, I push it into the sponge, I rotate it a few times, and now the bottom of this pot has no glaze on it. I'm going to do the same thing for my cup. I'm going to do the same thing for my bowl. All right, now these three things are ready to go onto the glaze shelf. They'll go in the kiln and they'll come out, and then you'll be ready to get them graded or take them home. Okay, thanks for watching.